I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're sharing a powerful real life story of survival, courage, and the unbreakable human spirit. The name of the book, A World Gone Mad, the true story of surviving a dictatorship. It is written by a terrific author. Her name is Gretel Timan, and in the book, she recounts her harrowing childhood under Hitler, the brutality of Soviet controlled East Germany, and the perilous journey that ultimately brought her to freedom in America. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put her on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Gretel, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you very much.
This is such a powerful book. We're delighted and appreciative of the fact that you're sharing your memories with us. What are some of your earliest memories of life living under Hitler's rule?
The earliest memory is the atmosphere of fear, of everybody being afraid. I can remember the year of 1943 when I was about 7, turning into 8 years old. It was a time that nobody dared to talk, truly that everybody was afraid to talk to a neighbor, that people got arrested, a neighbor got arrested in the street, that I had lived because he had heard a London channel talking about the Nazi period, about Germany, and shared it with somebody who denounced him. And I heard that my mother said the children were afraid to go to school because they felt they were in danger and didn't know what to say. So everybody was fear. I did not hear Hitler speak. My mother didn't listen to the channel. But I know everybody was afraid. And my father was in the war in Russia, and my mother always waited from one letter to the other. You didn't know whether he was alive or not. So that was the atmosphere. And then came the bombings. Of course, they started in 1943. At night, the city of Leipzig, we could see the fire. You couldn't see it during the day, but during the night, you saw just kind of a red part in the part where the city was. And we had alarms all the time. We had a bunker where you could go, which was bomb-proof, but you had to get, the alarms were mostly at night. You had to get fully dressed. You had to take your knapsack and walk there. And once you got there, children were crying, people were complaining, people were crying. There were just benches. Sometimes the benches were not even empty, and they would not let you get home until the all clear was. Yeah. So after a while, we didn't go anymore because it was night after night, and during the day, my mother worked, I went to school. So it was not feasible. We just took the chance of being bombed if we were unlucky. So those were my earliest memories.
Yeah, very, very frightening situation, a very, very difficult time to grow up. Talk to us about fleeing from East Germany when you realized you had to leave. Tell us about that.
Fleeing was forbidden. It was a crime. If you were caught, you got 2 years of prison. Wow. In a very terrible prison where they tried to break your spirit. Yeah. They put people downstairs. They had to stand in cold water for hours. They were interrogated, usually not believed. They were told to denounce other people who had helped them, whether they had been helped or not. So sometimes they made false allegations just to have the torture stopped. And so it was a very difficult time to live there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Eventually you made it to the United States. What was it like?
I made it because that morning I was interrogated by the Stasi. That was the political police. And I had had a very bad past because I had opposed the system, and everything was also written down. So I had a very bad past, and they could check it every time. So I was on the blacklist already. And also, I was not guilty in that part, or only partially guilty. There was a strike of medical students who had no choice of choosing what kind of doctors they would become. They were told they would become military doctors. And strangely enough, one of them, or a few of them, started a strike, which was amazing because you couldn't have a strike. And of course, it was the students were told to have a meeting where the dean would appear, and they waited and waited. And when the time came, the doors were locked from the outside. Trucks came up with police, and the doors were opened, and the students were put in trucks and led to the prison and interrogated piece by piece. And I had friends who were in the strike, and the main person was living in the house where I lived. And we were friends, and they thought there was a connection, and they came to interrogate me. And I knew I hadn't met him, I hadn't gone to the meetings, but they wouldn't believe me. They came at 4 o'clock ringing my doorbell, and it was shortly before Easter, cold. I was in my nightgown. They were dressed up in their suits. They sat in my little room for an hour interrogating me, and I was a 19-year-old girl, 20-year-old girl. Of course, I felt already strange being in my nightgown with 2 men dressed, being in my room. And they interrogated me for an hour and said they would check me and come back. Yeah. And I knew I had to leave that day. Yeah. Because they would check more on me and not believe me, and I would end up in prison. Yeah. So I left. Yeah. And I had to leave with nothing, taking the only choice, the only way I could get out was West Berlin. Mm-hmm. And because the border was totally sealed with mines and dogs, and 5 kilometer, no entrance to that place. And I had to leave with nothing, because if I took clothing or valuable things, they would check me, and they would take me off the train and check more. So I took a ticket not to Berlin, but beyond Berlin, where my grandmother lived. So because they would talk, where are you going? Where is your luggage? Can we check it? And if you had a ticket to Berlin, they would sometimes just take you off the train to check. So you had to be smart, and you learned all those things in all the years, because you always checked who made it and why, and who didn't make it and why.
Exactly. Yeah, you heard all the stories. You had to learn how to survive. You heard others who had tried to leave and failed. So you were determined to get out, and you did get out.
I had to get out. I had to get out.
Yeah. What was it like arriving in the U.S.? Tell us about arriving in the United States.
Arriving in the United States was marvelous. I had an aunt living there who was the one who had first my parents. They left 5. I lived 2 years in East Germany. I was a student. I had no way of, first of all, I knew no English. I had Russian and Latin. And so I did not speak English. I did not understand English. And so it was, of course, exciting and frightening. And my parents left 5 months after I did, after they were sure they were not watched anymore, because I was an only child, that I was not watched, they were not watched anymore. And again, they left with nothing, worked a year in West Germany, saved enough money to have 2 tickets could pay for 2 tickets. My aunt, my mother's older sister, was an American citizen. She left early and she sponsored us. And so my parents came and I went to a technical college studying chemistry. But then the Suez crisis happened and my father said, whether you finished or not, you will come because we do not want to be apart anymore. We have to be together. And so I came to the United States and was very nervous, got sick on the plane it was the smoothest trip in my life, but I was so nervous that I got sick. And so at the end, when we arrived, I said to the stewardess, thank you. And I knew that. And she said, you are welcome. And what I thought is, I did not know, it sounded like willkommen, the German word. And I thought she had my dossier because everybody had my dossier. And she would welcome me to the country. And I was just overwhelmed by the friendliness of inviting me to the country and welcoming me to the country, completely misunderstanding what happened. And I bowed and smiled and cried and laughed and stopped the whole part behind me, all the passenger behind me, who started laughing. And I didn't know why, what had happened, and was embarrassed and finally left and saw the skyscrapers in Manhattan. My parents lived in Manhattan and was totally overwhelmed by it. And
I'm sure you were overwhelmed with emotion. You know, it had been a long journey to get there. You're in the land of promise, opportunity, and freedom, the United States. It had to be a magical moment. I can see why you misunderstood the woman, and I can understand why you cried. We only have a couple of minutes left, but I want to get to an important part of your story. Tell us more about the Hansel and Gretel love story of meeting your husband.
We met at an international student club. And actually, when I went there, they said, there is somebody who is called Hans, you have to meet him. And he went and they told him, there is somebody who is called Gretel, you have to meet her. But I didn't go every day and he didn't go every day. And finally, I was sitting there and they said, Hans is here, and they brought him. And he kneeled in front of me and looked up and said, I'm Hans, and I'm glad, I'm happy to meet you. He never kneeled again in front of me, but on that night. And I said, why did you kneel? And he said, I wanted to make an impression. And he had a party on that weekend and said, can you come to my party? And I said, yes. And within 2 weeks, we knew we were meant for each other. Wonderful. And it became a love story.
Wonderful. That is a wonderful love story and a happy ending to leave the viewers at home tonight with. This is a terrific book, folks. Gretel has many, many stories like this. They are heartbreaking. They are heart-touching. They are life-affirming. They are love-affirming. You will absolutely love this book. It is called A World Gone Mad: The True Story of Surviving a Dictatorship. It is a remarkable autobiography that reminds us of the power of courage and the power and light of hope. Gretel, thank you so much for joining me here today.
And thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and your wonderful stories. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.